My name is Willow Vance. I am 28 years old and I live in the family lake house. I sat across from my parents and my sister, Lyanna. The room was cold, but my parents looked warm and happy. The lawyer had just handed Lyanna a check. It was for $6.9 million. My mother squeezed Lyanna's hand, her face glowing with the kind of pride she never showed me. My father smiled deeper than I had seen in years. Then he turned to me. He didn't hand me a check. He slid a single, crisp dollar bill across the smooth wood of the table. It stopped right in front of my hands. "Go earn your own, Willow," he said. His voice was calm. It was cruel. My mother didn't look me in the eye. She just adjusted her pearls and added, "Some kids just don't measure up." The room was silent. I felt the old, familiar sting in my chest. I felt invisible. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at George Washington's face on that dollar. They thought the reading was over. They thought I was worth nothing. But then, the lawyer cleared his throat. He reached into his leather bag and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. "Your father left one last instruction," the lawyer said. He placed the heavy letter in front of me. "This is for Willow, and Willow alone." My parents stopped smiling, but before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Willow Vance. I am 28 years old. To understand why that single dollar bill hurt so much, you have to understand the life I lived before that day. You have to understand that in my house, I was a ghost long before my grandfather died. I learned the word invisible when I was 6 years old. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was meatloaf night. My sister, Lyanna, was 8. She was loud, bright, and demanded attention like a flower demands the sun. I was quieter. I liked to draw. I liked to sit in the corner and listen. That night, I had a drawing to show my mother. It was a picture of our house. I had spent 2 hours on it. I colored the roof red and the grass green, and I even drew our dog, Buster, sleeping on the porch. I was so proud. My chest felt tight with happiness as I walked into the kitchen. My mother was at the stove. My father was setting the table. Lyanna was sitting on the counter, swinging her legs and talking about a ribbon she won at gymnastics. It was a participation ribbon. Everyone got one. "Look, Mommy," Lyanna shouted. "It's blue." "Oh, Lyanna, that is amazing," my mother said. She turned around, her face lighting up. She wiped her hands on her apron and took the ribbon. "Frank, look at this. Our girl is a champion," my father beamed. "That's my girl. A natural athlete." I stood by the refrigerator. I held my drawing with both hands. I waited for a gap in the noise. I waited for them to look down. "Mom," I said. My voice was small. She didn't hear me. She was busy pinning the blue ribbon to the refrigerator door with a magnet. "Mom," I said a little louder. She glanced at me, just a quick flicker of her eyes. "Not now, Willow. Can't you see we are celebrating your sister?" "But I made a drawing," I said. "Put it on the table," my father said without looking at me. "Set the forks." I put the drawing on the table. 5 minutes later, my father put a hot casserole dish right on top of it. The heat turned the wax crayon into a sticky smear. When he lifted the dish later, half my drawing peeled away with it. Nobody apologized. They just scrubbed the bottom of the casserole dish and threw my paper in the trash. That was the pattern. That was my life. As we grew up, the gap between us became a canyon. Lyanna was the star. I was the audience. When Lyanna got a C on her report card, my parents hired a private tutor. They sat with her for hours, helping her study, telling her she was smart, telling her she could do anything. When I got straight A's, my father signed the report card while watching the news. He didn't look at the grades. He just handed it back and said, "Don't block the TV, Willow." I tried to be louder. I tried to be better. I joined the soccer team because Lyanna was on it. I practiced every day in the backyard until my legs burned. In our first game together, I scored a goal. I looked to the sidelines, desperate to see my parents cheering. They weren't watching me. They were talking to the coach, asking why Lyanna hadn't been put in as a forward. That night in the car, my mother said, "Willow, you shouldn't hog the ball. Your sister was open." I sat in the backseat, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. I realized then that it didn't matter what I did. The script was already written. Lyanna was the hero. I was the extra. The only person who saw me was my grandfather Walter. He lived in the lake house, the big house where we spent our summers. He was a quiet man. He had rough hands and eyes that seemed to look right through you. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. He didn't like the way my parents treated me. He never yelled at them, but he had a way of correcting them. One summer, when I was 12, we were all having lunch on the deck. My mother was pouring lemonade. Lyanna needs new braces, my mother said to Walter. It's going to be expensive, but she has such a beautiful smile, we have to protect it. What about Willow? Walter asked. He cut his steak slowly. Willow, my mother laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Willow is fine, she doesn't need much, she's tough. Walter stopped cutting. He looked at me. I was looking at my plate, trying to disappear. She isn't tough, Walter said. His voice was low. She is observant, there is a difference. My father chuckled. She's just quiet, Dad, doesn't have much to say. She has plenty to say, Walter said. You just don't listen. After lunch, Walter waved me over. Willow, come with me. I followed him down to the dock. The water was still. The sun was hot on my shoulders. He sat down on a wooden bench and patted the spot next to him. Do you know why I like fishing? He asked. Because it's quiet, I guessed. No, he said. Because you have to pay attention to what isn't happening. You have to watch the line, you have to feel the current. Most people just look at the surface. They see the shine, they see the splash. But the real truth is underneath. He looked at me then. His eyes were blue and sharp. Your parents, he said, they look at the surface. They see Lyanna's shine, they don't see the depth. But I see you, Willow, I see you watching. I see you thinking. They don't like me, I whispered. It was the first time I had said it out loud. Walter put a heavy hand on my shoulder. They don't understand you, that is their loss, but you have a gift, you see the truth. You see things other people miss. Don't lose that. They will try to make you feel small so they can feel big, don't let them. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Take this, he said. Write down what you see. Not what they tell you to see, what you actually see. That notebook became my shield. I wrote down everything. I wrote down how my mother's voice changed when she talked to her rich friends on the phone. It got higher, fakier. I wrote down how my father hid bills in the bottom drawer of his desk when he thought no one was looking. I wrote down how Lyanna lied about where she was going on Friday nights, and how my parents believed her because they wanted to believe her. I became a spy in my own house. Years passed. I went to college. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my books because my parents said they were strapped for cash right after buying Lyanna a new car for her graduation. I didn't argue, I didn't fight, I just worked. I served coffee at 5 a.m. I shelved books at the library until midnight. I learned the value of $1 because I had to earn every single one. Lyanna went to a private college. They paid for everything. Her tuition, her apartment, her clothes, her spring break trips to Cancun. She sent me photos of her drinking margaritas on the beach while I was studying for finals in a cold dorm room. Wish you were here, she captioned one photo. No, she didn't. She liked being there alone. She liked being the golden child. When I graduated, my parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said it was too far to drive. It was 3 hours away. Lyanna had a dance recital the same weekend. It was at the local community center. They went to that instead. I walked across the stage alone. I took my diploma alone. I ate dinner alone at a diner, wearing my cap and gown because I had nowhere to change. The waitress gave me a free slice of pie. She was nicer to me in 5 minutes than my family had been in 20 years. But I survived. I got a job as a junior analyst at a logistics firm. It wasn't glamorous. It was data. It was numbers. It was finding mistakes in shipping routes. I was good at it. It was exactly what Walter had taught me. I looked for the patterns. I looked for the things that didn't add up. I kept in touch with Walter. He was getting old. His health was failing. But every time I visited the lake house, he would smile. How is the observer? He would ask. Still watching, I would say. Good, he would whisper. You'll need to watch closely soon. I didn't know what he meant then. I thought he was just talking about his health. I didn't know he was warning me. Then the call came. Walter had passed away in his sleep. I cried. I cried until my throat was raw. I wasn't crying for the money. I wasn't crying for the estate. I was crying because the only person in the world who knew my name, who really knew me, was gone. My parents didn't cry. When I got to the lake house for the funeral, the mood was strange. It wasn't sad. It was eager. My mother was already walking through the rooms, touching the furniture, moving vases around. We'll need to repaint this, she said, looking at the living room walls. This beige is depressing. Mom, Grandpa just died, I said. I was standing by the door, holding my bag. She waved her hand dismissively. He's gone, Willow. Life goes on. We have to think about the property value. This place is a goldmine if we fix it up. My father was in the study. He was going through Walter's desk. I heard drawers opening and closing. Found anything? my mother asked him, ignoring me. Just papers, my father shouted back. Old junk. Lyanna arrived an hour later. She was wearing a black dress that was too short for a funeral and huge sunglasses. She looked like she was dressing for a movie role, not a burial. It smells like old people in here, she said as she walked in. She hugged Mom. She hugged Dad. She gave me a quick, limp wave. Hey, Willow, they were a unit. The three of them, a closed circle. I was the satellite orbiting on the outside. We buried Walter on a Wednesday. It rained. My parents stood under a large umbrella. They stayed dry. I stood a few feet away, letting the rain soak my hair. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to feel something real. After the funeral came the reading of the will. I knew what was coming, or at least I thought I did. I expected to get nothing. I expected them to get everything. I had prepared myself for it. I told myself, you are strong, you are independent, you don't need their money. But I wasn't prepared for the cruelty. I wasn't prepared for the theater of it. The lawyer, Mr. Boone, asked us to gather in the main dining room of the lake house. It was a grand room. A long mahogany table stretched down the center, polished so bright you could see your face in it. The windows looked out over the lake. The water was gray and choppy today. My father sat at the head of the table. It was Walter's chair. He didn't even hesitate. He sat down, spread his arms, and leaned back like he had been waiting 50 years to claim that spot. My mother sat to his right. Lyanna sat next to her. I sat on the left side. Alone. The empty chairs between me and the head of the table felt like miles of distance. Mr. Boone was an old man, almost as old as Walter. He had white hair and shaking hands, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't look at my parents. He didn't smile at Lyanna. He opened his briefcase slowly. We are here to read the last will and testament of Walter H. Vance, Mr. Boone said. His voice was scratchy but clear. My mother leaned forward. I could see the greed in her eyes. It wasn't subtle. It was hungry. She was practically vibrating. Let's get on with it, my father said. It's been a long week. Mr. Boone ignored him. He put on his reading glasses. He picked up a document bound in blue paper. Walter was a meticulous man, Mr. Boone said. He updated his will 3 weeks ago. My father froze. 3 weeks ago, I thought the will was from 2015. He made changes, Mr. Boone said. He was of sound mind. I witnessed it myself. My mother exchanged a nervous glance with my father. Lyanna was scrolling on her phone under the table. She didn't care. She knew she would be taken care of. She always was. First, Mr. Boone read, to my son Frank and his wife Clara. My parents straightened up. This was it. I leave the collection of antique rifles in the study and the 1965 Ford Mustang in the garage. However, the title to the lake house remains with the estate foundation until further notice. My father's face went red. What? The foundation? What foundation? This house is ours. The will is specific, Mr. Boone said calmly. You get the personal effects. You do not get the real estate. Not yet. My mother looked furious. That's ridiculous. Who runs the foundation? We will get to that, Mr. Boone said. Please let me finish. He turned the page. To my granddaughter Lyanna. Lyanna looked up from her phone. I leave the sum of $6.9 million. The room went dead silent. Then Lyanna squealed. What? Are you serious? $6.9 million, Mr. Boone repeated. He pulled a check from a folder and slid it across the table. Lyanna grabbed it. Her hands were shaking. Oh my God, Mom, look, my mother gasped. The anger about the house vanished instantly. She grabbed Lyanna's arm. Oh, honey. That's wonderful, that's. Oh, Walter, you old saint. My father started laughing. It was a loud, booming laugh of relief. That's my girl, that is fantastic. We are set, we are absolutely set. They were hugging. They were high-fiving. They completely forgot I was in the room. I sat there, my hands folded in my lap. I felt cold. $6 million, that was life-changing money. That was freedom. That was safety. And Lyanna, who had never worked a day in her life, who had never visited Walter unless she needed cash, just got it all. I looked at Mr. Boone. He wasn't celebrating. He was watching me. He cleared his throat. Loudly. My family quieted down, but the smiles stayed plastered on their faces. There is one more beneficiary, Mr. Boone said. My father turned to me. His smile changed. It became a smirk. Right, Willow, he said. He sounded like he was remembering a chore he forgot to do. Mr. Boone looked at the paper. To my granddaughter, Willow. He paused. My mother leaned over to my father and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, probably enough to pay off her student loans. If she's lucky. To Willow, Mr. Boone continued, I leave the contents of my pockets at the time of my death. My father blinked. His pockets. Mr. Boone reached into a small manila envelope. He pulled out a $1 bill. It was wrinkled, it was old. He placed it on the table. He didn't slide it, he just set it down. My father stared at it. Then he started to laugh again. This time it was cruel, it was a bark of laughter. $1, he said. He left her $1. My mother covered her mouth, trying to hide a giggle, but her eyes were dancing with malice. Oh dear, well, it's symbolic, isn't it? My father reached out, took the $1, and slid it across the long table toward me. It spun on the wood and stopped right in front of my hands. Go earn your own, Willow, he said. I looked at the $1. I felt the blood draining from my face. I felt sick. Some kids just don't measure up, my mother added. She was petting Lyanna's hair. Lyanna was always his favorite, we knew that. It's okay, Willow, Lyanna said, clutching her multi-million-dollar check. I'll buy you lunch sometime, don't worry about it. They were enjoying this. They loved seeing me humiliated. They loved the confirmation that I was worth nothing. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them how I was the one who drove Walter to his doctor's appointments. I was the one who called him every Sunday. I was the one who loved him, but I remembered Walter's voice. Watch, listen, be still, so I stayed silent. I didn't touch the $1. Mr. Boone watched them laugh for a moment longer. Then his expression hardened. I am not finished, the lawyer said. His voice cut through their laughter like a knife. My father stopped. What, you read the will, money to Lyanna, joke to Willow, we're done. I said I am not finished, Mr. Boone said. He reached into his bag again. He pulled out a thick, heavy envelope. It was sealed with red wax. It looked old. Your father left a codicil, a private letter, and a specific set of instructions regarding the rest of the estate. He held the envelope up. On the front, in Walter's shaky handwriting, was one name, Willow. This is for Willow, Mr. Boone said, and Willow alone. My mother's smile dropped. Why does she get a letter? What's in it? That is for her to know, Mr. Boone said. He stood up and walked over to me. He placed the envelope in my hands. It felt heavy. It felt like it contained a heartbeat. He wanted you to have this immediately after the reading, Mr. Boone said softly to me. He said you would know what to do. I looked at my parents. They looked confused now, and suspicious. Open it, my father demanded. Read it out loud. No, I said. It was the first word I had spoken since the reading began. My voice was steady. Excuse me, my mother said, her eyes narrowed. Don't be a brat, Willow, we are a family, we share things. You didn't share the check, I said. You didn't share the praise, you didn't share the love. I stood up. I clutched the envelope to my chest. You have your money, I said. You have your victory, this is mine. Willow, sit down, my father shouted. He stood up, his face flushing red. I am your father, and I am telling you to open that envelope. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the fear behind his anger. He was afraid he had missed something. He was afraid he wasn't in control. No, I said again. I turned to Mr. Boone. Am I free to go? You are, Mr. Boone said. He gave me a small, barely visible nod. The proceedings are concluded for today. This is bullshit, Lyanna said. It's probably just a sentimental letter about how much he loved her. Let her have it. Yeah, my mother sneered. Go on, Willow. Go read your sad little letter. We have champagne to drink. You don't need much, my mother said, repeating that phrase she had used my whole life. So don't expect anything big in there. I looked at them one last time. The happy family, the rich family. Goodbye, I said. I turned and walked out of the room. I walked out of the lake house. I didn't look back. I got into my old, beat-up Honda Civic. My hands were shaking so bad I could hardly put the key in the ignition. I drove. I didn't go home. I couldn't go home. I drove into town and checked into the Whispering Pines Inn. It was a small, cheap place where Walter used to meet his fishing buddies. The lady at the front desk gave me a weird look. I was wearing my funeral black, but she gave me a room key. Room 4 billion. I went into the room. It smelled like pine cleaner and dust. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed. I placed the envelope on the cheap bedspread. My heart was pounding in my throat. I picked up the letter opener from the desk. I slid it under the wax seal. I opened it. Inside, there was no check. There was no deed to a house. There were 3 things. First, a small silver key. It looked like it belonged to a filing cabinet or a safe box. Second, a piece of paper with a string of numbers. They looked like coordinates, or maybe a bank account, but they were mixed with letters. 88J-20L-14. Third, a handwritten note. I picked up the note. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Walter's. My dearest Willow, if you are reading this, they have treated you exactly as I expected. They took the easy money. They took the shine. They left you the scraps. Good, because the money is a distraction. The money is the surface. You and I know the truth is always underneath. I cannot give you your inheritance. You have to take it. You have to find it. And to do that, you have to see what they have been hiding. The key opens the cabinet in the boathouse. You know the one. The numbers are the map. Start where the truth was first bent. Trust your eyes, Willow. Trust the silence. This is not a gift. This is a mission. Love, Grandpa. I sat there for a long time. The room was quiet. This wasn't just a goodbye. This was a job. My parents thought they had one. They thought they had $6.9 million in a lake house. They thought I had $1 and a broken heart. I looked at the key in my hand. It was cold and hard. They were wrong. I didn't have an inheritance. I had a weapon. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The letter lay on the nightstand next to the key. Every time I looked at it, I felt a surge of electricity. My grandfather hadn't left me behind. He had deputized me. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, thinking about the past 10 years. Thinking about my father's business trips that he never talked about. Thinking about my mother's sudden spending sprees. Thinking about how the lake house always seemed to have construction crews working on things that never looked different. Start where the truth was first bent. What did that mean? By morning, I had a plan. I wasn't going to go back to the main house. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. I showered and put on jeans and a sweater. I tied my hair back. I looked in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but they looked different. They looked sharp. I waited until 9 a.m. I knew my family. They would be sleeping in. They would be hungover from their champagne celebration. They would be lazy. I drove back to the lake property, but I didn't go to the main driveway. I parked down the road, near the old service entrance that the gardeners used. It was overgrown with weeds, but I could squeeze through the gate. I walked through the woods. The air was crisp. The leaves crunched under my boots. I moved quietly. I had spent my whole childhood learning how to move without making a sound so I wouldn't disturb my mother's headaches or my father's calls. I reached the edge of the property. The main house was huge and white on the hill. I could see Lyanna's car in the driveway. I didn't go up the hill. I went down to the water, to the boathouse. It was an old wooden structure, paint peeling, sitting half in and half out of the water. It smelled like gasoline and wet wood. My parents hated this place. They called it an eyesore. They wanted to tear it down and build a party deck. But Walter loved it. It was his sanctuary. I slipped inside. It was dark. Shadows danced on the walls from the water reflecting through the floorboards. I went to the back corner. There was an old metal workbench covered in grease and fishing lures. Underneath it was a gray metal cabinet. It was rusted. It looked like junk. My father would have walked past it 1,000 times. He would have seen rust. I saw the lock. I took the silver key from my pocket. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted it. It fit perfectly. Click. I pulled the door open. It wasn't empty. It wasn't full of fishing gear. It was full of binders. Thick, black binders. And a stack of hard drives. I pulled the first binder out. It was labeled Household Expenses 2018-2023. I opened it. It wasn't grocery bills. It was invoices. Invoices from companies I had never heard of. Red River Consulting, Summit View Holdings, Blue Heron Logistics. I flipped through the pages. The amounts were staggering. $15,000 a month for consulting. $20,000 for structural repairs that I knew never happened. $50,000 for legal retainers. And at the bottom of every invoice, there was a signature approving the payment. It wasn't Walter's signature. It was my father's. I felt a chill run down my spine. My father didn't have the authority to sign these. Walter controlled the money. Walter signed the checks. Unless, I pulled out another binder. Medical proxy. I opened it. There were emails. Printed emails between my father and a doctor I didn't recognize. Email from Frank to Dr. S. He's having bad days. He doesn't remember much. I think it's time we activate the clause. I need to take over the accounts to pay his bills. Email from Dr. S. As discussed, if you can provide the affidavit of incompetence, the power of attorney triggers. I froze. Walter wasn't incompetent. He was sharp until the day he died. He played chess. He did the crossword. He remembered my birthday when my own parents forgot. My father had lied. He had told the doctors Walter was losing his mind so he could get control of the money early. I sat down on the dusty floor. The binder felt heavy in my lap. This wasn't just favoritism. This wasn't just my parents liking Lyanna more. This was theft. This was elder abuse. My parents had been stealing from Walter for years. They were draining his accounts into these shell companies. I looked at the pile of documents. Start where the truth was first bent. The truth was bent when they convinced the world my grandfather was weak so they could rob him blind. I realized then why they gave me the dollar. Why they wanted me gone. It wasn't just because they didn't love me. It was because I was the only one smart enough to figure this out. If I had been close to the money, if I had been involved in the estate, I would have seen the discrepancies. I was an analyst. This was my job, so they pushed me away. They made me the outcast. They made me the villain so no one would believe me if I spoke up. I felt a fire start in my belly. It wasn't the hot, flashy anger of a tantrum. It was the cold, blue flame of determination. I packed the binders into my backpack. I took the hard drives. I was about to leave when I saw something else in the back of the cabinet, a small black box. I pulled it out. It was a recording device, a high-end one. There was a note taped to it. Press play. I pressed the button. Walter's voice filled the small boathouse. It sounded tired but strong. Willow, if you found the binders, you know the numbers, but you need to see the faces. I installed a camera in the main study 3 months ago. I told them I was putting in a smoke detector. They never looked up, they never checked. They think I don't know, Walter's voice continued. Frank thinks I'm senile. Clara thinks I'm blind. They sit in my study and they plan how to spend my money before I'm even dead. The recording paused, then Walter sighed. I could have called the police. I could have changed the will to cut them off entirely, but they would have fought it. They would have said I was crazy. They would have dragged you into court for years. So I let them think they won. I let them dig their hole, and I left the shovel for you. The camera footage is on the hard drive labeled study. Watch it. Then you decide what to do. The recording ended. I put the recorder in my pocket. I zipped up my bag. I stepped out of the boathouse. The sun was higher now. The lake was sparkling. Up on the hill, I saw my father walk out onto the balcony. He was holding a coffee cup. He stretched his arms, looking out over the water, looking like the king of the world. He didn't see me in the shadows of the trees. He didn't know that the ghost of the family had just found the receipts. I walked back to my car. My step was light. My fear was gone. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the judge. I drove back to the inn and turned my room into a war room. I pushed the bed against the wall. I used the desk and the small round table as my workspace. I laid everything out. Binders, papers, hard drives. I opened my laptop. I connected the hard drive. I started with the numbers. I pulled up the public records for the companies on the invoices. Red River Consulting. It was registered to a P.O. box in Delaware. I dug deeper. Who owned it? A holding company. Who owned the holding company? I followed the trail. It took me 4 hours, but I found it. The registered agent for the holding company was a man named F.V. Miller. My father's middle name was Vernon. His mother's maiden name was Miller. Frank Vernon Miller. He was paying himself. I checked Summit View Holdings. Same thing. Registered to an address that turned out to be an empty lot in a town where my mother's sister lived. They were sloppy. They were arrogant. They thought no one would ever check because they thought they were the smartest people in the room. I built a spreadsheet. I entered every invoice from the binders. 2019, $150,000 stolen. 2020, $220,000 stolen. 2021, $300,000 stolen. The numbers escalated. As Walter got older, they got greedier. Then, I opened the video files. The folder was labeled The Study. I clicked on a video dated 2 months ago. The screen showed the study in the lake house. My father was sitting at Walter's desk. My mother was pouring a drink at the sidebar. He's refusing to sign the check for the roof, my father said in the video. He says he wants to see 3 quotes. The old bastard is getting suspicious. Just forge it, Frank, my mother said. She took a sip of her drink. He shakes so much anyway, no one will know the difference. I don't want to push it, my father said. If we push too hard, he might call the lawyer. We need to keep him isolated. Have you told the nurse not to let him answer the phone? Yes, my mother said. I told her he gets agitated. She took the phone away yesterday. I felt sick to my stomach. They isolated him. They trapped him in his own house so they could steal from him. I clicked another video. This one was from last week, just days before he died. Lyanna was in the room this time. She was looking at a jewelry catalog. "Dad, when Grandpa kicks the bucket, how long until I get the money?" she asked. "It takes a few months to settle the estate," my father said. Hey, that's forever," Lyanna whined. "I saw this condo in Miami. I need a deposit now." "Don't worry, princess," my father said. "Once he's gone, we control the trust. We can borrow against it. You'll get your condo." "What about Willow?" Lyanna asked. "Is she getting anything?" My mother laughed on the video. "Willow, please, she's too proud to ask for help and too stupid to know what she's owed. We'll give her a few crumbs, maybe pay off her car. That will shut her up." "She's a nobody," my father said. "She's got no fight in her, we don't have to worry about Willow." I paused the video. I stared at my father's face on the screen. "She's got no fight in her." He was wrong. I had all the fight in the world, I just stored it differently. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things, I documented. I sat back in my chair. I had enough evidence here to send them to prison. Fraud, embezzlement, elder abuse. Forgery, but Walter's letter said, "Start where the truth was first bent." He didn't say, "Call the police." He gave me the power to choose. If I went to the police, it would be a scandal. It would drag Walter's name through the mud. It would take years. There was a better way, a quieter way. I looked at the legal documents Mr. Boone had given me. I looked at the structure of the will. If they contest anything, the entire estate transfers to the foundation. I remembered what Mr. Boone said at the reading. "The title to the lake house remains with the estate foundation. We will get to that." I picked up the phone. I dialed the number on Mr. Boone's business card. It was 8 p.m. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Boone," I said. "It's Willow. I've been expecting your call, my dear," he said. His voice sounded warm. "I found the cabinet," I said. "I have the binders and the videos." "Good," he said. "Walter knew you would." "I know what I have to do," I said. "Tell me," he said. "I need you to come to the lake house tomorrow morning," I said. "Bring the final papers. Bring the transfer documents for the foundation." "And your parents?" he asked. "Don't tell them you're coming," I said. "I want it to be a surprise." "What time?" "Dawn," I said. "I want to do this when the light is clear." "I will be there," Mr. Boone said. I hung up. I looked around the hotel room. It was messy with the debris of my family's crimes. But my mind was clear. I wasn't invisible anymore. Tomorrow, they were going to see me. They were really going to see me, and they weren't going to like what they saw. I didn't sleep a wink that night in room 4 billion. The neon sign of the Whispering Pines Inn buzzed outside my window, a constant hum that matched the racing of my heart. I had the evidence. I had the truth. But I needed to be sure. I needed to know exactly what I was walking into. So, I spent the entire night watching my family on my laptop screen. The hard drive from the hidden camera was like a window into a world I had always suspected but never seen. It was painful. It was like peeling back skin to see the infection underneath. I watched a video from last Thanksgiving. In the video, I saw myself arrive. I saw myself holding a pumpkin pie I had baked from scratch. I saw my mother hug me, her smile tight and fake. Then the camera showed what happened after I left the room. My mother turned to Lyanna. "God, she looks tired. And that dress. It looks like she bought it at a garage sale." Lyanna laughed, picking at the crust of my pie. "She's trying so hard, Mom, it's kind of pathetic." My father walked in. "Did she ask for money yet?" "Not yet," my mother said. "Give it time, that's the only reason she comes around." I sat in the dark hotel room, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was relieved. For years, I thought I was crazy. I thought maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was difficult. They had gaslit me for so long, making me believe that their coldness was my fault. But the camera didn't lie. The camera showed the truth. They didn't hate me because I was bad. They hated me because I was inconvenient. They hated me because I wasn't like them. I wiped my face. I was done crying. I opened the financial binders again. I needed to understand the mechanics of their theft. I found a folder labeled Project Lakeview. Inside were blueprints, not for repairs, but for a subdivision. My father had drawn up plans to bulldoze the lake house. He wanted to tear down the house Walter built with his own hands. He wanted to cut down the forest where I learned to walk. He wanted to turn the land into 20 luxury condos. There was an email attached to the plans. From Frank to developer subject. Timeline: the old man is holding on longer than expected. But don't worry. Once he passes, we will liquidate the property immediately. My daughter Lyanna wants the cash for a place in Miami, and Clara and I are ready to retire to Arizona. We will sell to the highest bidder." I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. They weren't just stealing money. They were selling our history. They were selling the only place that had ever felt like home to me. And they were doing it for quick cash. Walter knew. He must have found these plans. That's why he locked the deed in the foundation. That's why he trusted me. He knew I was the only one who would keep the trees standing. I looked at the clock. It was 4:30 a.m. I took a shower. I scrubbed my skin until it was red. I wanted to wash off the feeling of being their daughter. I wanted to be clean for what was coming. I dressed carefully. I put on a white blouse and black trousers. I put on my blazer. It was the outfit I wore to big meetings at work. It was my armor. I packed the binders. I packed the hard drive. I packed the single-dollar bill they had given me. I checked out of the hotel. The air outside was cool and blue. The sun wasn't up yet, but the sky was lightening. I got in my car and drove toward the lake. I wasn't going there to beg. I wasn't going there to argue. I was going there to foreclose on their lies. I arrived at the lake house at 5:45 a.m. The house was dark. The driveway was empty except for my parents' SUV and Lyanna's convertible. I parked my car right in the center of the driveway. I blocked them in. I walked up the front steps. I used my key to open the front door. The house was silent. It smelled of stale champagne and expensive perfume. I walked into the dining room. The long table was still covered in the mess from yesterday. Empty glasses, napkins, the blue folder of the will. I cleared the head of the table. I moved my father's dirty glass. I moved the chair. I set up my laptop at the head of the table. I connected it to the large TV screen mounted on the wall. I placed the binders in a neat stack next to me. I placed the silver key on top of the stack. Then I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I made it strong. The smell filled the house. I poured 4 cups. I sat at the head of the table, Walter's seat, and I waited. At 6:30 a.m. I heard footsteps upstairs, then voices. "Who is making coffee?" My mother's voice drifted down the stairs. "Did the maid come early?" "I hope so," Lyanna said. "I need aspirin. My head is killing me." They walked into the dining room. My father was in his bathrobe. My mother was wearing a silk kimono. Lyanna was in oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. They stopped dead when they saw me. I was sitting in Walter's chair. My hands were folded on the table. I looked calm. I looked ready. "Willow," my father said. His voice was thick with sleep and confusion. "What the hell are you doing here? How did you get in?" "I used my key," I said. My voice was steady. "Sit down." "Excuse me," my mother said, tightening her robe. "You don't tell us what to do. Get out of that chair. That is your father's chair now." "No," I said. "It isn't. Sit down." There was something in my voice they hadn't heard before. It wasn't the voice of the daughter who begged for attention. It was the voice of the woman who held the cards. They hesitated. Then, looking confused and annoyed, they pulled out chairs. They didn't sit close to me. They sat at the far end, huddled together like they were cold. "This better be good," Lyanna muttered. "I have a flight to catch at noon." "You're not going to make that flight," I said. "What is this about, Willow?" my father snapped. "Is this about the dollar? Look, if you need money, just ask. We can write you a check for 5,000. Just stop this drama." "I don't want your money," I said. "I want you to watch something." I pressed the spacebar on my laptop. The big TV on the wall flickered to life. The video started playing. It was the one from the study, dated 3 days before Walter died. On the screen, my father was pacing the room. "If he doesn't die soon, we're in trouble," the video Frank said. "The auditors are asking questions about the Red River account. I moved another 50 grand yesterday, but I can't keep covering it up." "Just relax," the video mother said. "He's weak. He won't last the week. Once he's gone, we burn the records. No one will ever know." In the dining room, the color drained from my father's face. He looked like he had been punched in the stomach. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "Turn it off," my father shouted. He stood up. "Where did you get that? That's illegal. That's a private conversation." "It's a recording made by the owner of the house in his own home," I said. "It's perfectly legal, and there are hours of it." I didn't turn it off. I let it play. On the screen, Lyanna walked in. "Dad, did you transfer the tuition money? The school is saying the check bounced." "I'm moving money from his medical trust," Video Frank said. "Just wait a day." In the dining room, Lyanna looked at her father. "You stole my tuition money from Grandpa's medical fund." "Shut up, Lyanna," my father hissed. He was sweating now. I paused the video. The room was deadly silent. "I have the binders," I said. I tapped the stack next to me. Red River Consulting, Summit View Holdings, I have the invoices, I have the bank records. I traced the shell companies to you, Dad. My father sank back into his chair. He looked small, he looked old. Willow, he started, his voice was shaking. You don't understand, we were just borrowing it, we were going to pay it back. You were stealing, I said. You stole over $2 million in the last 5 years. You stole from a man who trusted you. You gaslit him into thinking he was losing his mind so you could rob him. We're family, my mother cried out. Tears were streaming down her face, but they were tears of fear, not remorse. Willow, please, we are your parents. You can't do this to us. Think about the scandal. Think about our reputation. You didn't think about my reputation when you told everyone I was a failure, I said. You didn't think about family when you handed me a single dollar bill and laughed. We were joking, Lyanna said. It was just a joke. It wasn't a joke, I said. It was the truth. You showed me exactly who you are. Just then, the front door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. Mr. Boone walked into the dining room. He was carrying a leather briefcase. My father looked at the lawyer, then at me. You called him. I did, I said. Mr. Boone walked to the head of the table. He stood next to me. He didn't look at my parents. He placed a document on the table. Walter anticipated this, Mr. Boone said. He knew about the theft. He documented everything, but he gave Willow the choice of how to handle it. Mr. Boone looked at me. Willow, I looked at my parents. They were terrified. My father was trembling. My mother was sobbing into her hands. Lyanna was staring at the floor. I have a choice, I said to them. I can turn this evidence over to the district attorney. You will go to prison, all of you. Fraud, embezzlement, elder abuse, my mother wailed. No, please, Willow, no. Or, I said, we can do it Grandpa's way. What is Grandpa's way? My father asked. His voice was a whisper. I nodded to Mr. Boone. Mr. Boone opened the document. It was the codicil, the amendment to the will that triggered if misconduct was found. The terms are simple, Mr. Boone said. He slid 3 papers across the table. One for each of them. First, Mr. Boone said, Frank and Clara, you will sign over your rights to the personal effects. You get nothing, no cars, no antiques, nothing. My father nodded quickly. Okay, fine. We sign. Second, Mr. Boone continued. You will repay the estate, every penny you stole. We have the total, $2,140,000. We will liquidate your personal assets to cover it, your house in the city, your stocks, your retirement accounts. My mother screamed. Our house, you can't take our house, we'll be homeless. You won't be homeless, I said calmly. You can rent a small apartment, you don't need much. Isn't that what you always told me? The words hit her like a slap. She stopped screaming and stared at me. She saw her own cruelty reflected back at her. Third, Mr. Boone said, turning to Lyanna. The trust fund. Lyanna looked up, hopeful. I still get the money, right? The $6.9 million. No, Mr. Boone said. The money was conditional on the estate being in good standing. Your parents drained the estate. The money is gone. But that's not fair, Lyanna yelled. I didn't steal it, they did. You benefited from it, I said. Your car, your tuition, your trips. It was all paid for with stolen money. You knew, Lyanna. I saw you on the video asking for the money before he was even dead. Lyanna slumped in her chair. She looked like a child whose balloon had popped. So I get nothing, she whispered. You get a choice, I said. The estate will set up a small stipend for you, enough for rent and food. But you have to get a job, you have to work. If you hold a job for 1 year, the stipend increases. If you quit, it stops. Lyanna looked at me with horror. A job, but I'm an influencer. That's not a job, I said. I'm talking about a real job where you answer to someone else. It will be good for you. Mr. Boone cleared his throat. And finally, the lake house. My father looked up. What about the house? The title transfers immediately, Mr. Boone said, to the Walter Vance Foundation. And who controls the foundation? My father asked, though I think he already knew the answer. Mr. Boone placed a hand on my shoulder. Willow does, he said. My parents looked at me. They saw the daughter they had ignored, the daughter they had mocked, the daughter they had underestimated. They saw the new owner of their world. You, my mother spat. You can't run a foundation. You're just Willow. I am the only one who kept the receipts, I said. I pushed a pen across the table. Sign the papers, I said, or I call the police. You have 5 minutes. My father picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold it. He looked at the video still frozen on the screen, the proof of his crime. He looked at the binders. He knew he had no way out. He signed, my mother signed, weeping silently as she wrote her name. Lyanna signed last. She threw the pen down when she was finished. Mr. Boone collected the papers. He checked the signatures. It is done, he said. I stood up. You have 1 hour to pack your things, I said. Take your clothes, leave everything else. The cars stay, the jewelry stays. Where will we go? My mother asked, her voice broken. I don't know, I said. Go earn your own. I turned my back on them. I walked out to the deck. I heard them scrambling upstairs, the sound of suitcases being dragged, the sound of frantic arguments. I didn't care. I stood by the railing and looked out at the lake. The water was calm. The sun was fully up now. It was a beautiful day. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the weight of their expectations, the weight of their judgment. It was gone. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't even the judge anymore. I was just Willow. And I was finally free. They left at 9 a.m. My father drove his own car, not the Mustang, but his old sedan. My mother sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Lyanna sat in the back, texting furiously, probably trying to spin the story to her friends. I watched them go from the porch. They didn't wave. They didn't look back. As their car disappeared around the bend of the driveway, silence fell over the property. Real silence. Not the tense silence of a family dinner where everyone is angry. Not the lonely silence of my childhood bedroom. This was the silence of peace, the silence of ownership. Mr. Boone came out to the porch. He was holding 2 mugs of fresh coffee. He handed one to me. You did good, kid, he said. Did I asked. I feel empty. That's normal, he said. You've been carrying a heavy load for a long time. Now you've put it down. It takes a while for the muscles to realize they don't have to strain anymore. He took a sip of his coffee. Your grandfather would be proud, he said. He knew you had the spine for it. He just needed you to find it. What happens now? I asked. Now, Mr. Boone smiled. Now you run the foundation. The assets are significant. The stolen money will be recovered. You have the resources to do whatever you want. What do you want to do with the land? I looked at the trees. I looked at the shimmering water. I want to keep it, I said. I want to turn it into a retreat. A place for people who need to escape, for people who feel invisible. That sounds like a fine plan, Mr. Boone said. He finished his coffee and patted my arm. I'll be in touch with the paperwork. Enjoy the house, Willow. It's yours. He left. I was alone. I walked through the house. I walked through the rooms that used to intimidate me. I walked into the kitchen where my mother used to ignore me. It was just a kitchen now, just counters and cabinets. The ghosts were gone. I walked into the study. I sat at the big desk. I ran my hand over the wood. I opened the top drawer. It was empty except for one thing, the single dollar bill. I had left it there earlier. I picked it up. I looked at George Washington. I didn't hate the dollar anymore. It wasn't an insult. It was a trophy. I took a picture frame from the shelf, a picture of my parents that I removed and threw in the trash. I put the dollar bill in the frame. I set it on the desk. It was my reminder. A reminder of what I was worth to them and what I was capable of doing despite them. I went down to the dock. I took off my shoes and dipped my feet in the cold water. I thought about Lyanna, probably crying in a motel room right now. I thought about my father, realizing he had to answer to the IRS. I thought about my mother, realizing she had no audience left. I didn't feel happy about their pain. I wasn't sadistic, but I felt a deep, abiding sense of justice. The balance had been restored. The truth had been leveled. I laid back on the wooden dock and looked up at the sky. A hawk was circling high above, riding the wind. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. For the first time in 28 years, I wasn't waiting for permission to exist. I wasn't waiting for someone to tell me I was good enough. I was just here, and that was enough. Some justice is loud. Some revenge is screaming and fighting and wars. My revenge was water still. It was the quiet ticking of a clock. It was the simple turning of a key. I closed my eyes and listened to the waves hitting the pilings. Slap, slap, slap. It was the sound of my new life beginning. My name is Willow Vance. I still live in the lake house. I run the Vance Foundation now. We support art programs for underprivileged kids, kids who have talent but no one to watch them. My parents, I hear from them occasionally. They send emails. Sometimes they ask for money. I don't reply. I file them in a folder labeled past. Lyanna is working as a receptionist at a dental office. She hates it, but she's keeping the job. Maybe there's hope for her yet. I didn't destroy my family. I didn't ruin their lives. I simply held up a mirror and let them see themselves. They ruined their own lives when they decided that greed was more important than love. I learned something important through all of this. If you are the one in the corner, if you are the one they talk over, if you are the one they treat like furniture, do not disappear. Watch, listen, keep your receipts. Because the people who shine the brightest often cast the darkest shadows, and sooner or later they will slip. When they do, you don't need to yell. You don't need to make a scene. You just need to be ready to step into the light. My grandfather left me $1 and a truth. The dollar is framed on my desk. The truth is written in my heart. Value yourself. Because if you don't, they will set the price for you, and they will always set it too low. So to all the invisible ones out there, stay quiet, stay sharp, and when your moment comes, don't blink.